The Bad Batch is back after a few lackluster weeks, in my opinion. Episode 14, like predicted, was pretty good. So I'm here to talk about it, give my opinions, give my predictions for the next episodes. And yeah, I'm so happy that this is much better than the last episode, in my opinion. Like I said in that video, I think the next three will be great. And well, out of the one of those three we've seen, it was pretty good. So let's get on with my thoughts on Bad Batch episode 14. So, like I said, I think this is much better than the last episode, although this episode was more kind of like setting up the next one and potentially even the one after that. It was still a fantastic episode in itself. Sadly, before we get onto the great stuff, we did learn that the Bad Batch are still working for Sid, and when we see them in this episode, they are actually midway through a mission for Sid. Which is like expected. Obviously, if they left Sid, we would have seen that because that's a pretty big point. But they haven't done that, so we saw them in like their ship, and they get contacted by Rex, which is obviously great. We haven't seen Rex in a while. Everyone thought he'd play a bigger part in this like series, and well, he's back, and I think we'll be seeing more of him in the next two episodes. Now, he contacts the Bad Batch because he's busy himself, and he cannot go and save who we know to be Gregor, on the planet that he was on. I forget what it's called. So after like a bit of a discussion, the Bad Batch agree to go and save Gregor, and sadly Omega gets sidelined on this mission, despite in a few episodes ago she played like the hologram game with Hunter, and if she won, it would mean that she doesn't get sidelined anymore. So I'm assuming Hunter won that, which is a shame. I wish Omega won that game, but she gets left with Wrecker to like stay with the ship, which I guess isn't really sidelined because she was still on the mission and she was actually pretty important. However, it did still for me feel like they were leaving her with Wrecker at the ship, although to still be useful because they didn't trust her inside the facility to break out Gregor. Now, this ended up being a great decision because, like I said, Omega was very useful. She clearly learnt a bit from Hera and she flied the ship very well. And also Wrecker staying behind was like probably quite important because, as we know, stealth isn't his like best attributes. So that was actually a good decision, as much as I still would have liked to have seen Hunter like maybe take Omega, purely for the fact that I don't want him to be sidelining her, although like I said, it still worked out all good. I just feel like if Hunter said, we need you to stay with the ship so you can be the one to fly it, so you can get us out, rather than just like, you go Wrecker and get back to the ship. Now, something that I particularly liked in this episode was how many clone commandos we saw. Like, I'm a big fan of the commandos. We just haven't really seen too much of them in like the Clone Wars or anything, so we got a lot of them in this episode. They look so cool, and it was nice to see that the Bad Batch are still like very much superior to them, despite the clone commandos being very much superior to a regular clone. So it's just like, I'm glad we've seen like a bit more power scaling of the Bad Batch. Like, they are very good. They are above clones that are above normal clones. So yeah, they're just incredible, which leads me to think if they are to die in this series, it's going to have to be by either significant numbers or a significantly powerful being, maybe an Inquisitor. Now, something else that I love to see that leads me to believe another potential like big time jump between episodes is that there was some new armor for the clones, or whatever's under those armor now, because obviously some of them are normal people, some of them are clones. It's kind of like a weird transitional armor between Stormtrooper armor and Clone Trooper armor, and honestly, I quite like it. I loved seeing it. It's just so cool to see the transition fully between the Republic and the Empire, not just in like who's in charge and like everything like that, but just like visually, because obviously it looks very different when the Empire is in like full command and the Stormtroopers are obviously rocking around, and they look very different to the current, or prior to this episode, the Clone Troopers. So yeah, it was really cool to see like how they're transitioning, and I'm a fan of this armor. Now, they obviously successfully break out Gregor, and something that I need to point out is he tanked about 3 shots to the chest. So whether that's because he's like a clone commando and they're like, well, can tank it a little bit more, I don't know. But he wasn't even wearing like full armor and he managed to do this, and I know a regular clone wouldn't be able to do this. So that was pretty impressive, and I thought, well, this really shouldn't have happened. But either way, he managed to tank it pretty well, which is kind of like shocking how in Rebels he died just to 1 shot in the chest. But anyway, he was much older and weaker then, so that might be the reason. I've probably just answered my own like problem there. Now, something that we see, which is very interesting, is that the Empire is fully taking over Kamino. They no longer have need for a politician. They just want to be in charge of the scientists, and they don't care to actually work with Kamino in like a mutually beneficial partnership. So, Lama Su has been killed, I think. They didn't show it, but I mean, there was two like troopers pointing a gun at her, because obviously she would be the one to ensure like a actually mutually beneficial partnership between the Empire and the Kaminoans. But no, she's taken out. It's just the scientists, just the people that they need. So yeah, the fact that they have kept the scientists alive is very important, because it's kind of like, well, obviously we know the clone trooper like whole thing of clone troopers does get demolished, but we do know that there are some specific clones in the future that are very important to the galaxy, so I'm just wondering if the Kaminoans are involved in that, which they are likely to be. And obviously I'm talking about Snoke's and Palpatine's there. And I'm wondering if we potentially see like a really, really young Dr. Pershing, or maybe just like humans working on the like cloning project that aren't clones, which obviously Dr. Pershing ends up being one of. I think that would be really cool to see, because obviously in the original trilogy and Rebels, I don't believe we see any like humans working like on Kamino or for the cloners, or just the Kaminoans specifically, or just working on any cloning project. So Dr. Pershing is obviously one of these, and humans being a part of the cloning program is probably something that's about to start happening in this kind of era of Star Wars. So I don't know if Dr. Pershing is old enough in The Mandalorian to be introduced in the Bad Batch, because he doesn't seem that old, and obviously Mandalorian is about, it must be like 23 years later, because Bad Batch is right after Revenge of the Sith. We don't really know the time jumps that have been happening, but A New Hope happens 19 years after Revenge of the Sith, so let's call it 18 and a half, and then the original trilogy is what, 3 years, that's 21, then a couple years after, 23, 24, so yeah, about 23, 24 years, and there's no way Dr. Pershing looks already like 23, 24, and then gets another 23, 24 years on. So he's not nearly 50 in The Mandalorian, is what I'm saying. So there's probably just going to be a few normal humans, just humans that are getting introduced to the cloning project now. That was a lot of waffle, but you know what I'm trying to say. So hopefully we do get some more hints of like the whole like Mandalorian cloning stuff. Maybe we see some hints. Obviously nothing major, because I don't think Palpatine would have exactly had a Snoke body ready yet, but just some hints towards that kind of stuff. Just the Empire working on some kind of cloning stuff that isn't regular clone troopers. I think that would be really cool to see. Now, at the end of the episode, Crosshair came to Hunter's cell. Now, this is particularly interesting because Crosshair wants Hunter dead, but it's just like, that's not going to be that emotional of a scene for Crosshair to just shoot Hunter in his cell and that's it. So, as much as Crosshair is going to want to kill Hunter, I don't think he's going to. He's going to have orders not to, likely because he is an enhanced clone, and they want his like blood or something like that. They did want Omega back, because she was an enhanced clone. Whether that's because she's like particularly different from the rest of the Bad Batch, I don't know. But I do think they're going to want to test on Hunter. Again, I don't know why, but I don't think Crosshair is just going to shoot him, because obviously him being the main character of the Bad Batch, it's not going to be very emotional of a scene if Crosshair just whips out his blaster and shoots him where he lies. Maybe if he tries to take him to the scientists, and then like partway through the Bad Batch and Rex, and maybe even Wolf, with Rex is with Wolf, come to try and save him, and then Crosshair realizes he's not going to be able to get him to the scientists, then just shoots Hunter. That would then be emotional, but I don't think Hunter's going to die in his cell via Crosshair. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. They decided to leave it at that point. I do think that the Bad Batch are going to contact Rex, and Rex is going to be with Wolf, and they're going to come back for him. However, I'm not so sure how many of them are going to make it out alive. I am leaning towards the fact that they are going to die. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are going to die in this series. Hopefully via an Inquisitor or potentially Vader, as there has been big time jumps between each episode. And obviously we know Vader is likely doing his Vader 2017 stuff at this point, or near and around this point, and we know in Vader 2017 Inquisitors already exist, so depending on the time jumps, we could see a Vader or Inquisitors from after the 2017 Vader stuff come and kill the Bad Batch, or some Inquisitors that aren't in Vader 2017 at all come and kill the Bad Batch. So I guess that's all I have to say about Bad Batch episode 14. I would probably rate it a solid 9 out of 10. It was genuinely really, really good. Best episode in a while. Some actual plot development, like Hunter's just been captured. They just got Gregor back, which obviously we know he's going to survive and go off with Rex. So yeah, some really important stuff this episode. I'm very, very excited. Obviously, Lama Su has obviously died, so some really big plot development here, and some big, like, important stuff for the galaxy at large. Like, these things that have happened are big, so I can't wait for next episode. Again, I'm going to stick with my guns and say that the next 2 episodes, just like this one, are going to be fantastic. And for what's largely been a relatively mediocre series, the ending has to be big for it to be just worth existing. And Dave Filoni isn't going to make a project that is completely pointless, so I trust that these last 2 episodes are going to be crazy, crazy good. So I can't wait for them. Let me know what you thought about this episode of The Bad Batch. Let me know what you thought about this video of mine. And if you enjoyed, please do leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, with the notification bell on if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you so much for 8,400 subscribers. Look out for my video tomorrow, or potentially the next day, depending how long the edit takes, where I talk about how Starkiller could fit into the Ahsoka series. And if you want to get yourself a little bit hyped up for that, I posted like a Ahsoka versus Starkiller trailer yesterday. It's done pretty well on my channel, so yeah, go check that out. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.